classroom. Each panelist is given 20 minutes for presentation and additional 10 minutes for question and answers. Participants are also encouraged to state your affiliation. This is particularly during the Q&A, and you may either use the ministry's Facebook or the chat room to deliver your questions. And to start with, it is now time for us to hear from our first panelist, His Excellency Charles Hay, and His Excellency started as the British High Commissioner to Malaysia in March 2019, last year. And prior to Malaysia, Mr. Hay was the British Ambassador to South Korea from 2015 to 2018. And before joining the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in 1993, he was a captain in the British Army. So with that extensive experience, I believe His Excellency can share with us the inputs. And for today's discussion or today's webinar, His Excellency will be talking about British High Commissioner effort entitled Blue Hope Campaign. And I believe this is to address the crux of the matter, the human behavior with regards to how we see marine litter and marine litter issue as a whole. So with that, let us welcome His Excellency Charles Hay. And Your Excellency, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. And it's great to be here in this webinar with such a distinguished panel. The reason I'm here is the campaign you just mentioned, which we call Blue Hope. And maybe before we have a look at the slides, I can give a little bit of background to this campaign. So it's part of a more general campaign we've been running for a while about plastics, and we've been able to cooperate very closely with the Malaysian government on the issue of plastics more generally. We found that there was, for example, an issue of plastics being exported from the UK to Malaysia, ostensibly for recycling, but in fact we found that the plastics that were being sent very often were not suitable for recycling. So in effect, they were being dumped on arrival in Malaysia, and we were able to work closely with the Malaysian government to repatriate. So so far we sent back to the UK 42 containers full of plastic waste, and we hope that with the measures now in place in Malaysia and in the UK, that we can prevent these kinds of dumping activities taking place. So that's been one area of work that we've been doing very successfully. The question of plastics in the ocean is one that is absolutely key, and which this campaign Blue Hope was really all about. And we decided to do this campaign in conjunction with World Oceans Day. And again, there's a kind of wider piece to that, which is that the UK, as many of you will know, is hosting the next Conference of the Parties, COP26, on climate change. And it was meant to have taken place in Glasgow in November. Because of COVID, it's been delayed. That's a pity in one way, but in another way, it's given us more time to be able to work up our plans and projects and work closely with partners to have an even more successful COP next November. So this particular campaign, Blue Hope, was put together to highlight the issue of plastics in the ocean and to encourage particularly young people to make efforts to tackle the problem. So there's some slides. I don't know if we can have the first slide on the screen for viewers. Thank you. So here we are. This is the Blue Hope campaign, and as I say, the aim was to raise awareness in all the participating countries. It wasn't just in Malaysia. It ended up being a campaign that spanned the whole Asia-Pacific region. And the aim was to highlight the importance of the world's oceans and the damage plastic pollution is causing, and to encourage action to stop this pollution and protect the oceans and ocean diversity. And we also wanted to showcase international collaboration and science and technology that's being deployed to help create a plastic neutral circular economy. Now, the next slide shows the partners that we brought together, a small team of core campaign partners that came together to create the campaign. We launched the campaign on World Oceans Day and then ran it for the week 8th to the 12th of June. We had a lot of supporters, which you'll see on the next slide, a very, very wide range of support from across the UK and Malaysian government, from NGOs, from charities, from academia, from the private sector, and from the press and media. We also managed to put together a wealth of resources, which you'll see on the next slide, which brought together, so on the next slide we have the resources, which is the Blue Hope website, bluehope.org, and I hope people will go to the website and have a look at that. There's a number of important videos, documents, and recordings of various webinars that we ran during the course of that week. And that website will continue to be updated and new content will continue to be added. So I think the most exciting thing that we did was the Plastic Detectives, which was aimed at children and involved a homeschooling activity sheet. The activity sheet, which I hope we'll see on the next slide, there we go. It's downloadable, free to download, and it will be, I believe, sent out by the Malaysian Ministry of Education in the end to up to 10,000 state primary and secondary schools across Malaysia. And as you can see, it's available in a number of different languages, English, Bahasa Malaysian, Mandarin, Tamil, Thai, and Khmer, which reflects the sort of regional spread that we ended up getting with the Blue Hope campaign. And the aim of this worksheet is to encourage everyone, especially children, to collect and record the plastic waste that they find in their own home for 1 week. And we asked them to record their results on the online survey, which is part of the website. And when we've collected enough responses to make it a meaningful number, then we will put these combined survey results together and share them with governments and policymakers. And what we've asked the participants to do is, as well as recording their plastic waste, we asked people to consider whether they need to use all this plastic in their homes. We're encouraging people to think about changing their shopping habits, to put pressure on retailers and shops, and for everybody to reduce their use of plastic, and especially single-use plastic. So on the next slide, you'll see some results that were collected by one of our participants. And this reflects the plastic, and this is just the waste, obviously, not the kind of stock of plastic that people have in their own homes. So we asked them to photograph the waste, and we asked them to share the photographs via social media and other channels and encourage others to take up the Plastic Detective Challenge and ultimately to change their behavior towards plastic and towards single-use plastic. So here you can see this one participant has collected all these items, 42 different items, mainly food packaging from the look of it, laid them out and weighed them. And that is one household for 1 week. So, we encourage people to think more widely about this and to think about multiplying that by 52 weeks of the year and multiplying that by the number of households in their town, city, and country. And that gives a sense of the sort of scale of the challenge that we're looking at when it comes to plastic waste. On the next slide, we've put, so sorry, I should mention these are other resources. There's 3 films that are very, very much worth watching, and they highlight the damage that plastic does to the oceans. So it's not just the sort of gross pieces of plastic. You'll see there the drinks cup and the plastic bag. These are images we're all sadly very, very familiar with now. Wildlife in the ocean being strangled or smothered or choked by plastic. But one of the most striking parts of the films shows how plastic breaks down. I mean, it's as a material, it's a remarkable material because it lasts for such a very, very long period of time. But it does break down, and it breaks down into microscopically small bits of plastic. And some of the most, I found most interesting and most thought-provoking bits of the film show how these microplastics then themselves become part of the food chain and are found in every part of the ocean and in pretty much everything that lives within it. And of course, as we, of course, eat the seafood, then the plastic, micro bits of plastic get into our systems as well. And we don't really know enough yet about what the impact is on human health either. So these films are definitely worth watching. We had an opening webinar, a launch webinar, and we were fortunate enough to put together a pretty stellar cast for that. And on the next slide, we'll see some clips from it. So on the top left is a face that I'm sure is familiar to many people watching this webinar. That is Sir David Attenborough. I've been lucky enough to speak to Sir David Attenborough about our campaign on a couple of occasions. He agreed to support us. And in fact, our involvement with David Attenborough in this whole campaign goes back to last year when we organized a VIP viewing of one of the episodes of Blue Planet here in Kuala Lumpur. And Sir David recorded a special video message for that VIP screening, which was shown in the presence of His Royal Highness the Earl of Wessex. So David Attenborough agreed to do the video for us. He unfortunately couldn't take part in the webinar. As you can imagine, on World Oceans Day, he was about the man in most demand on the planet, but he was good enough to support us. The person on the top right is maybe less familiar, but he is Lord Goldsmith, who is a British activist, politician, and now member of the House of Lords and Minister for the Environment. And he recorded a special message for us, which was a really good film, because we asked him just to do a short welcome message, but in fact, he gave us something a lot more than that. He gave us his own thoughts on a lot of the policy issues that face us as we try to deal with the question of plastics in the ocean. And in fact, much more broadly than that. It's about 5 or 6 minutes long. And again, it's very, very much worth watching. The panel below, the four faces below, the one on the bottom right is, of course, me. It's not very flattering. So I don't know who chose that picture, but anyway, that's me chairing the webinar. Next to me is Dr. Sylvia Earle. Sylvia Earle is an extremely well-known figure in the marine and ocean world. She has been involved in scientific research into the ocean for more than 50 years, I think. And I think she's led more expeditions underwater than any other scientist. She's led 80 expeditions and herself has spent 7,000 hours underwater. She's currently explorer in residence at the National Geographic Society, and she's a legend. She actually is, she's walked on the floor of the ocean more at a point that is more deep than anybody else has walked before or since. So it was amazing to have her as part of the webinar. She's based in the US, in San Francisco. And then above us on the left is Jo Ruxton. Jo Ruxton is another very well-known figure in the field. She worked for the World Wildlife Fund in Asia for many years. She was a member of the BBC Natural History Unit. She produced part of the Blue Planet series, and she's founder and director of Plastic Oceans UK and co-producer of the film A Plastic Ocean. Jo is very, very dedicated. The reason that she left the Blue Planet team was that she realized she wanted to do more to prevent the plastic in the ocean than just making films about it for the BBC. And so she has become a very, very active voice in the field. She was the one, I think, who can reasonably claim to have first alerted the world to the perils of plastic pollution in the ocean. And then above me is a chap called Paul Rose. Paul is another very well-known figure in the field. He's one of the world's most experienced science expedition leaders. He's currently expedition leader for the National Geographic Pristine Seas expeditions. And he was a base commander for the British Antarctic Survey in the Antarctic for 10 years. So again, very well known, extremely knowledgeable in his field. We had a whole range of webinars during the week. We covered a whole range of topics. All these, I think, have now been recorded and placed on the website. So we looked at the coral triangle and protecting marine biodiversity. We talked about the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has a very active role. The Commonwealth Clean Oceans Alliance is a very important grouping of Commonwealth countries that's come together to tackle the issues of plastic in the ocean. And the UK at the moment is the chair in office of the Commonwealth as well. We looked at plastic pollution and the interconnection with climate change. Again, that's extremely relevant for our chairmanship of COP26. We talked about plastic pacts across the world and the chemical recycling of plastics. And one of our partners in Blue Hope is a company called Mura Technology. And they have developed a technology which allows for the recycling of basically almost any kind of plastic, including plastics that currently are considered not to be recyclable, such as plastic film. And of course, as you'll know, many recycling technologies produce a rather low grade of plastic, which is kind of gray and not very attractive to the consumer. So it's not easy always to use that recycled plastic again. But the technology that Mura have developed basically turns used plastic back into the virgin material from which you can make new plastic of very high quality. So that's the kind of technology that needs to be developed to create that circular plastic economy. So it was very exciting to have them on board, and they were able to make a presentation on their technology. So the webinars that we did, they got 165,000, more than 165,000 views and counting. And we think we reached about 500,000 people in the week of the campaign. And as I say that, as they're all still available, we're hoping that they will be accessed and used as resources in the future. So that was our Blue Hope campaign, which we ran for that week. But as I say, it's still live, and we are considering what our next steps are, how we take forward the campaign. And we've got here the video message. And I don't know, Mr. Chair, whether you can you play that? Is that possible to do? It's just quite short. I'm not sure if we're getting the sound coming through, Mr. Chair, whether that can be, whether it's just my device.
Can we hear the sound now?
We're getting some very graphic images of plastic waste, but unfortunately not the message. Thank you very much. Well, I mean, very graphic images in that clip, and the clip with sound is available on the Blue Hope website. And David Attenborough clearly is very engaged in this part of the world. He's been to Malaysia on several occasions for filming, which I think is one of the reasons why he was very keen to be involved in the project. Anyway, Mr. Chair, I think I've run out of my time, so I should probably stop there and take any questions that anybody wants to put in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Just because we have checked with our IT department that the sound was very clear through the Facebook live streaming. It's just that maybe through this Zoom platform, we can't hear the sound of the clip. But again, thank you, Your Excellency, for enlightening us with and I was so interested in program. I know this is specifically targeted for younger children, and I think this is a very, very good platform to advocate the understanding and the awareness with regards to management of plastic at a very young age. And we hope that by having these inputs, our kids will know how to manage plastic waste, and it will not be another source of pollution for the environment. And we really thank for that initiative. But the more critical point is now, I mean, despite changing our individual habits towards pro-environmental regime, maybe Your Excellency can share with us what are the critical success factors in changing behavior, in changing individual habits, and especially with regards to Malaysian. How should Malaysia change our habit towards having a more proper waste or plastic waste management?
Well, that is really the key question, isn't it? And there was a very lively debate during our webinars on this exact issue. And some people were very much putting the emphasis on recycling plastic, but others said, that's not going to be enough, and you can't, we're not going to be able to recycle our way out of this plastic problem. We need to find other approaches. We need to radically cut down the amount of plastic that we use in the first place. I think there's a lot that the private sector can do, and one very interesting initiative that has also been launched here in Malaysia is the WRAP initiative, W-R-A-P. And this brings together a lot of the biggest retailers and other private sector, and they have set themselves targets to reduce the amount of plastic they use in their packaging by a considerable amount. I think consumer pressure is hugely important in this area as well. Businesses react, generally speaking, to consumer demand. And if consumers start saying, we're not going to accept anymore this amount of plastic packaging on our fruit and vegetables or whatever it might be, that's a very powerful thing too. So I think one of the messages was we all have a part to play, no matter how big or small. We all have to work together on this. I think one of the things that Malaysia and the UK have done is government action as well to cut down, for example, on the use of plastic bags by putting an end to free plastic bags and obliging retailers to charge customers for plastic bags, and thereby encouraging people to change their habits so that they carry their own shopping bag when they go out and fill that rather than buying a plastic bag. I'm not sure about the figures for Malaysia, but in the UK, that plastic bag charge has led to something like a 90% drop in the number of plastic bags being used by retailers, which is quite a remarkable achievement. And of course, it's one the retailers also welcome, because they don't want to be the bad guys. They don't want to be the ones producing all this plastic and putting it all into the environment. So I think there's different elements to this. And one of the biggest elements of plastic in the ocean is not actually from consumers. It's from discarded fishing tackle, so-called ghost tackle, which by some accounts is about 80% of the mass of plastic in the ocean. And there are initiatives underway to try to incentivize and encourage fishermen not to just dump used tackle in the ocean, for them to recover tackle that's lost, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole range of different things that we need to do together to tackle this issue.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think the key message is we need to start early, start small, and start slow, but most importantly, start steadily so that we can have a bigger impact later on. Maybe it's not for us, but it's for future generation, for our kids, for our grandchildren, so that they're gonna have a more healthy environment, right? So again, I thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing with us Blue Hope campaign, and also your insight on behavioral change as a whole. I don't see any question from members of the webinar, but most of the comments were very positive, and they like the idea of Blue Hope campaign approach, whereby we target at the younger generation. And therefore, if I may continue the webinar with our second panelist, we have Prof. Dr. Sudesh Kumar from USM. Thank you, Prof, for joining us. A little bit background about Prof. Sudesh Kumar. He's the professor at the School of Biological Sciences, University Science Malaysia since 2001. And he is well known for his research on biodegradable plastic. Dr. Sudesh has been developing the technology to produce PHA since early 90s. And to date, 28 master students and 35 PhD students have graduated under his supervision. With a total number of 192 scientific publications and 8 granted patents, he is indeed among the top research scientists in Malaysia. And his H-index and total citations in Scopus is around 34 and 5,000 odd. And that data is of June 2020. And he is also the chief editor of Malaysian Journal of Microbiology and a fellow of Academy of Sciences Malaysia. And with his extensive experience about the biodegradable plastic, we welcome Prof. Dr. Sudesh to share with us his presentation entitled Biodegradable Plastic, an Alternative to the Current Plastic. Prof. Sudesh, please, the session is yours now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Eddie. I hope you can hear me clearly. Yeah. Okay. And first of all, thanks again to the Ministry of Environment and Water for organizing this event, and also inviting me to participate. And also, it was a very pleasant experience to share this event with His Excellency, Mr. Charles Hay, the ambassador of British Embassy, and also Ms. Elena from Green Tech. And I think we are confronting a very tricky problem and a tricky issue. So what I intend to do is to share with everyone and also to clarify about bioplastics, because I think one of the hurdles in advancing strategies and also methods of mitigating this problem is to first understand the problem properly. And I think there is still a lack of understanding among not only general people, but also policymakers in the ministries, and also even lecturers in the university. So I would like to try and explain as simply as possible what actually is a bioplastic, And I may not have good news for everyone. I hope you don't think that bioplastic is going to solve the problem. And I seriously think the problem can only be solved by changing our behavior. Another material is not going to solve the problem. So with that, I would like to have your permission to share my screen. Is that okay? Right, so I have here a simple presentation, which not many slides. So there has been a lot of talks about alternative materials, materials that can be used to replace petrochemical plastics, the ones that we are currently using. And these are all in general termed as bioplastic. So can bioplastic be the alternative for conventional petroleum plastics? And I think His Excellency Mr. Charles Hay, he has rightly mentioned that plastics are a remarkable material. I think we should not forget that because of the invention of plastics, we are enjoying a tremendous amount of comfort in our life. Not only that, there's a lot of energy savings and also food safety. Everything is due to plastics. So I hope we don't come up with methods or strategies that will basically throw away everything that has been developed for the well-being of humans. I think this is also important for us to remember. And of course, materials, they are, bound to degrade and, deteriorate over time. This is not something unusual. So how do we manage this kind of materials? I think that is the main issue that we have to address. So I personally have been working on biodegradable plastics since 1990s. So it's almost 30 years now. So I've been attending conferences and doing a lot of research by myself and with my students. And this topic has been discussed for a very long time, even before the problem now appears in front of us. And we know what are the difficulties that that we are facing. So let me just introduce a little bit about University Science Malaysia. This is the one of the oldest university in Malaysia, which is situated in Penang. And we are proud because we were ranked number 49 by the Times Higher Education of the University Global Impact Rankings. And USM is actually number 1 in Malaysia based on these sustainability policies and also the education that we are following according to UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So as you can see here, our mission and vision is very much aligned with UN's SDGs. And we are very proud that USM is modeled as a university in the garden. We have a lot of activities, and we also have a Center for Global Sustainability Studies, which is focused on covering as much area as possible towards sustainability. So plastics is just one of the areas that we are focusing on. So I think, as everyone knows, without having to talk too much on this issue, so we are currently in a plastic age. As you can see in this slide, almost anything around us is made out of plastic. And there is a good reason why it has become like this. It is because of the remarkable properties of this material. And plastics, you cannot just generalize all plastics as the same, because there are many, many different kinds of plastics. Even if you take a simple mineral water bottle or a Coke bottle, you will find at least 3 different kinds of plastics that are being used. The bottle is made of one kind of plastic. The cap is a totally different property. And then you have the label, which is again another kind of plastic. And so this addresses the issue of recycling. So it's not easy to recycle plastics because there are so many different kinds of plastics that are being used. And on top of that, the used plastics are usually contaminated with food and soil and some dirts. So it makes it very, very laborious and also costs a lot of money just to clean the material and segregate before they can be processed and recycled. So recycling is not a simple issue. It is quite complicated because of the various kinds of plastics that are being used. So what are the alternatives? And before I talk about the alternatives, so some of the plastics that I've shown you earlier in the previous slide, these are the common plastics that everyone are aware of. Everyone knows these are plastics, but there are also many kinds of plastics that people are not aware that they are also contributing. For example, these tea bags. The tea bags that we use, and these are like, it goes into the millions, just like our face mask that we are using right now because of the pandemic. All of these are made of plastics. So these are all non-woven fabrics, that the materials are all different kinds of plastics. And not only that, the detergents that we use, the body scrubs, the shampoo, the body soaps, some of the body soaps, they contain plastic beads, for improved scrubbing effects. So there are so many kinds and versions and different types of plastics that we ourselves are contributing without even knowing that we are part of the problem. And to bring it closer to us right now, the clothes that we are wearing. In fact, if you look at the label of the clothes that you are wearing, unless you are wearing 100% cotton fabric, most of the time it would be at least 65% polyester. This is again plastics. So every time you throw your clothes into the washing machine and you get it washed, you are contributing to this problem because millions of microfibers are going to be released from these fabrics. And this, of course, some of them are trapped by the nets that are used in the washing machine, but a lot of it gets released into the wastewater stream and it goes into the ocean. So this is how, without knowing, we are contributing to this problem. In fact, if you want to broaden the issue, if you look at the rubber materials, which are also a polymeric material, just like plastics, a lot of the rubber materials like the car tires that we are using, our sandals, shoes, that are being used, they are subjected to abrasion. Every time we use them, there are lots of microparticles that are being released. That is the reason why we change our car tire every 2 years once, or we change our slippers, or we change our sandals. So we don't realize that the amount of microparticles that we ourselves are contributing to this problem. And all of these are ending up in the ocean. So that is where the problem builds up over time. Okay, so it is not so simple. It is not just like replacing one kind of material and then, we have like achieved something. I don't think it is so simple. So then where do we go? How do we solve this problem? And as I said, there is no easy solutions, and bioplastics are not going to solve the problem. So what is bioplastics? So bioplastics, the moment you have a terminology with a bio in it, it simply means that something that originated from living organisms. So plastics that are derived from biological or renewable materials. Okay, for example, plant materials, cellulosic materials, or it can even be like corn starch, or it can be tapioca starch. Anything that comes from living material, or it can even be like crab shells, the kind of chitosan materials. All these polymeric materials that originated from living organisms can be termed as bio. And these materials, if they can be used in order to make plastic-like materials, so you can technically refer to them as bioplastics. So the starting materials for bioplastics can come from plants. Okay, this can be sugars, this can be oils, and many other plant components. And the production of these bioplastics can also be carried out by living organisms. For example, the kind of plastics, the bioplastics that I have been working on is actually produced by microorganisms. So we ferment bacteria in large vessels, just like how you brew beers. Okay, so these huge quantities of microorganisms can convert plant materials into plastic-like materials. So this is what I will be talking on more in a while. And these bioplastics that are derived from living organisms may or may not be biodegradable. So this is again another important issue. Just because it has a bio there does not mean it will degrade. So this is another big misconception. And the reason why different countries are trying to produce bio-based or biodegradable plastics or renewable plastics is not just because of pollution. For example, countries like in Europe and I think in UK also, the bigger issue is global climate change. So, and one of the reasons for global climate change is carbon emission. So in order to minimize this carbon emission, so it is better to use renewable material that comes from plants, renewable resources. So this again, may not be the same as for other countries. Like in Malaysia, I think when we talk about bioplastics, we are actually looking at pollution as the problem. And we think that bioplastics can minimize this pollution problem. But other countries, they have other purposes. Okay, so the global climate change and carbon emission are also good reasons to look for bio-based materials. So in this table here, basically this table summarizes some of the different kinds of bioplastics that are currently available in the market. So as you can see here, they're all quite like mixed up. So for example, if you look at the top on the left, so you have this bio-PE. So this is bio-polyethylene. So polyethylene, I think a lot of us, we know, this is one of the most commonly used commodity plastic. And we know that polyethylene is not biodegradable. Okay, it is an excellent material. It has got a lot of good properties that can keep our food safe, and it is very light and it's strong, but it is not biodegradable. So what about biopolyethylene? Is that a bioplastic that is biodegradable? The answer is no. Biopolyethylene, the properties are exactly the same as the petrochemical polyethylene. The only difference is the petrochemical polyethylene was synthesized from petroleum, whereas the biopolyethylene was synthesized from sugars. Okay, sugars from corn, for example, sugar cane, you can ferment it and you can get ethanol, and from ethanol you can get ethylene, and from ethylene you can polymerize and make polyethylene. So this makes it a bioplastic technically, but it is not biodegradable. So likewise, you have other kinds of materials. For example, if you look at on the right now, you have bio-based and biodegradable material. So here you see PLA, okay, polylactic acid. So this is another kind of bioplastic that is quite widely used now. And PLA is not degradable in the environment. So you cannot just say that the PLA that you're using, if you bury it in your landfill, or you put it in your backyard composting facility, or if you just accidentally dropped it in the ocean or in the river, and you can just say that, oh, don't worry, it will biodegrade. No, PLA will never degrade in the environment. It only degrades in finely controlled compostable conditions. So these are called industrial composting, which many countries don't have these facilities. Okay, only a few countries have this kind of very precisely controlled industrial composting facilities. So PLA only degrades in that kind of environment. So if you get PLA and you start using PLA in Malaysia, thinking that this is a bioplastic that will solve your problem, definitely not. It is not going to solve any problem. So, and then you also have other kinds of material. I don't have the time to go through all the materials. So I will explain a little bit on PHA. So PHA is the kind of material that I've been working on for many, many years. So I know quite a lot about PHA, and I would be very happy to answer any questions about PHA. So this slide here, this cartoon here basically shows how PHA can be synthesized. So you need microorganisms. So this cartoon here basically is an attempt to show a single bacterial cell. I hope if there are any children who are watching this at this moment, don't go back thinking that bacteria has got eyes and mouth. This is just a cartoon just to show that you can feed the bacteria with any kinds of carbon sources like palm oil products or tapioca starch or basically anything that the microorganisms can eat. And these microorganisms will then convert these materials into a kind of storage compound. So just like us, when we eat more than what we need, we store this excess amount of food in the form of fat. And plants, they do that also when they can get more carbon than what they need. So they will store the excess amount of carbon in the form of starch. So microorganisms are also like that. You know, they don't have the luxury of going to 7-Eleven where you can get food all the time. So when they need food, they have to rely on themselves. So they will store as much food as possible in the form of polymer. So this is what most microorganisms they do. So because this is a storage compound, microorganisms naturally have enzymes to digest this compound. So that makes this material biodegradable. So that is the difference between this material, PHA, that is synthesized by bacteria, and other kinds of polymeric materials that are synthesized. So this is 100% natural. Microorganisms naturally can make this kind of materials in their natural environment, and they have enzymes that can degrade this material. So what is interesting about this material? So this is not a new material. This has been discovered almost 100 years ago. And a lot of countries, even UK, has developed this material. A very well-known international company called Imperial Chemical Industries, they have in fact attempted to mass produce this material in the early 1970s or 80s, if I'm not mistaken. So there has been a lot of attempt by many countries, even in the US, in Brazil, in China, and in Germany, to produce this material. So currently, the main issue is the cost of production. And I will explain to you why this is so. So before that, let me show you a little bit about this material. So when you extract these PHA granules from bacterial cells, what you will get is a material that resembles normal petrochemical plastics. So this picture here shows you how the material would look like. You can actually make a film, or you can even make any kinds of plastic materials. So this is a thermoplastic, which means that you can process it just like how you would process petrochemical plastics. And what is interesting about this material is that when you put it in an environment where there are lots of microorganisms, like the soil or water, and even in ocean. So this is very important to remember. PHA is the only kind of bioplastic that is also degradable in the ocean because of the microorganisms that are present in the ocean. So this is a plastic film, a PHA plastic film that has been left on the surface of the soil in Malaysia. So this is what happens within a period of about 1 month. So as you can see here, the PHA film has already been almost like 70% degraded. So this is what will happen to anything that is made out of PHA. And PHA is a thermoplastic, which means that you can process it just like how you would process petrochemical plastics. And it is, as you can see here, it is biodegradable, and it is 100% biodegradable because microorganisms can eat this material and digest it and will not leave traces of microplastics in the environment. So that is the good thing about this material. In fact, PHA is also a biocompatible material, meaning that you can actually make medical devices, you can make surgical implants, you can make sutures, and you can actually put it into your body, and your body will not reject this material. So this is the biocompatibility of PHA. And finally, this is also renewable, meaning that you can produce this material from renewable resources like plant-based material. So you don't have to use non-renewable fossil fuel in order to get this kind of material. So what is the problem? Why, after about 100 years of research, why we still don't see such excellent materials in the market? I'm sure you have this question in your mind. And the first answer is the cost. It is not as cheap as the petrochemical plastics. So that is one of the major hurdles. So we've been working very hard to reduce the cost of producing this material. And we have been quite successful in reducing the cost, especially by using the waste that we can get from the palm oil industry in Malaysia. So that is one of the good news that I can share with you. So we're actually in the process of trying to commercialize, to scale up and commercialize this material now in Malaysia. So this is an example of a straw that was made using PHA. This is a prototype made in the laboratory, as you can see here. And this was tested in the mangrove in Penang. So as you can see here, the initial straw on the left, you can see the straw, which is just as any other ordinary straws. And within a period of 3 weeks, you can see significant amount of degradation has taken place. And after 6 weeks, more of the materials has been degraded. And I think within another 2 more weeks, it will be completely degraded. So, and this happens in the ocean. So just to, to re-emphasize the fact that this is a material that degrades not only in soil, but also in the ocean. So I'm not sure if I still have much time. There are more materials and also information that you can get from my lab's website. And we are still trying to put more, and it's still under, partially under construction, but you have all this access to this information there. So the useful properties of materials that should be possessed even by good biodegradable plastics are the ones that has been listed here. So this is important. It is not so simple to find substitute for excellent materials like the plastics that we are using now. A lot of work that has been done, and also a lot of effort by very well-known scientists all over the world who have been working on developing the current plastics that we've been using now. And it is not so easy to get all the excellent properties that we have with the currently used plastics. But we are working very hard to have biodegradable plastics that are similar to the petrochemical plastics that we are using now. And I'm not sure, do I still have time? Maybe 2 minutes? If I have time, then I would like to show you a simple 2 minutes video. Do you see? No?
You can't really see the video, but the music is nice though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Maybe Prof can stop share your first slides or your first presentation and reshare your video. Yeah.
See if I can do that. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. I think I wasn't able to. Let me see.
Okay.
I don't think you see it, right?
We see just a
small,
minute of it.
Yeah, sorry.
If you can double click that, I think maybe we can, yeah.
Okay, maybe this one. Okay, can you see now? Do you see this?
No.
No?
No.
Why not? Okay, is it okay now?
Okay.
All right.
Now we
Sorry.
can see.
Okay. Sorry for that. Yeah, so that's what I was planning to share and also discuss about. So thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Dr. Sudesh. That was truly stimulating and inspiring knowledge shared by Prof. Sudesh. And before we go on with the question and answer session, let me just start by posing one simple question. Maybe with regards to, as mentioned by Prof. Sudesh, that PHA is the kind of plastic that we're looking for future generation, right? Because it is biodegradable, it is most friendly to the environment and also human health. But the question that I would like to pose now, referring to the readiness of the industry. We know that cost of producing this type of plastic is higher than compared with the rest of the plastic category. But the readiness of our industry to really adapt and change their raw input materials and their, towards the value change of plastic. Do you think that our industry in Malaysia, in particular, ready for this kind of change?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it is not going to be so smooth, and it is not going to be so easy to replace petrochemical plastics. But having said that, the plastic industries are aware of the problems caused by plastics, and they are already looking at alternative materials. And PHA is just one example. PHA is not the only kind of alternative that you can choose. As I mentioned just now, petrochemical plastics, there are so many different kinds. So one type of plastic will not be able to solve all your material needs. So, for example, if you just look at a mineral water bottle, it has to be strong enough to hold 1 liter of water, and it has to be durable, and it also has to be, clean, and and the shelf life has to be good. There are so many criteria that the material has to fulfill before it can be used for a daily kind of material. So, and the industries are aware of all these issues. So one of the problem is the material properties. So if you're going to use PHA for some applications, like for example, straw, I think it is possible. But I think it is also important to remember the economics. Straw is a very, very cheap material. I don't think anyone in the right mind would want to invest millions of dollars to build huge bioreactors just to make straws.
Yeah.
Because you won't make money from selling straws, is it? So these are the problems. Of course, the materials are good. It can replace some applications, but the economics is also important. You need to make sure that the industries will be able to make profit making this kind of material, and the supply must be there. And industries are not looking at small quantities. They want millions of tons of materials, you see. If not, they are not willing to switch into a new material. So a lot of issues that we have to be aware of before we impose all kinds of regulations. Otherwise, we will be just choking ourselves. For example, like in the case of the face masks that we are using right now, these are all made out of plastics. Of course, people are throwing them away, everywhere and all, but still, this is the most economical means of, protecting yourself. So if you don't have, imagine if you don't have this face mask, I think there'll be many more people getting infected with this COVID-19. You see, so I think these are things that we really have to think very carefully before choosing new material, and also before stopping the currently existing material. So that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Dr. Sudesh. I think the synergy between researchers, academia, the government, the NGOs, the idealists, and also the players, the industry needs to be there.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to understand our
Yeah.
own capacity, our own weaknesses, before we can even embark and declare, okay, this is the end game. Even though we have the solution right in front of our hand, but the application of it might, might cross other people's jurisdiction and other people's businesses and rest. So yeah, I think the synergy between both parties or maybe multi parties should be there, right? And thank you for that answer. And I just pick up a few important questions from our participants. One question from Zurina Mokhtar. She posed two questions actually. One is on brand audits. Roughly how effective is the brand audits being carried out worldwide in identifying companies responsible for plastic pollution?
Well, this is I don't have the information, but I know there is a lot of confusion and there is a lot of greenwashing that is going around as well. So greenwashing is something that many industries are doing right now. In a way, it is like I don't have the information, but I know that. Yeah. So basically, these are materials that are not really eco-friendly or not really biodegradable, but they are marketed as such.
Yeah.
So this is of course not easy to be caught. Like for example, the child investigators, the one that His Excellency Mr. Charles mentioned just now. This is a good start because children become aware of this kind of plastics. But this is just the beginning. I think slowly the community and people have to be aware of what are the sources of plastics and what are the different kinds of alternatives that are appearing now in the market. And we cannot blame anyone. For example, you have this bio PE that is marketed by, say, one of the European countries, or industries, but they have their own reason why they are looking at bio PE. It is to reduce carbon emission. Okay, but if we are confused and we think that bio-PE is another kind of bioplastic and we start using it here, thinking that it will solve our pollution problem, then it is, grossly misleading, you see. But then it is all about being able to identify accurately and also precisely the various kinds of materials, and also labeling is very, very important. I think in Malaysia, the labeling, it is still not, very clear. I have a lot of collaborations with Japan and Japanese industries, and I see that the labelings there are very clear. It states clearly what this material is made of and how it should be disposed. And, so this kind of information are lacking here in Malaysia. So because of that, it is very difficult to have these brand audits. Okay, so, but I think this is very important. I think we should start having clear brand audits, and there should be a one-stop center. For example, the Ministry of Environment can take it as their responsibility to have all this information in a website where everyone can refer to.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope I answered that question by Ms. Zurina.
Yeah, I think you have answered it in a beautifully manner, because brand audit, conceptually speaking, is a tool where you can really ensure your industry is on their toe. But the application of it depends on certain economies factor. And I think for Malaysia to really go into brand audits at our current stage, we'll have some, I would say, there are a lot of other factors that we need to factor in before we can do a proper brand audit. But the idea, the concept of having brand audits to ensure our industry is up to the standards or up to the compliance rates that we need is undisputable. Okay, and we have another question by Mr. Yusuf Ishaq. He mentioned that industries are molding our consumer habit by offering convenient plastic packaging in Malaysia. I think the question here is how do we encourage our industry to change their habit by not offering some, cheap plastic or, those, to ensure that, whatever being produced or whatever being offered by the industry are in compliance with environmental standards, high environmental standards and whatnot. So what is your perspective on this? How to change industry's behavior in the
I have a different opinion on this matter, you see, because we can never solve problems by pointing to others. So industries are there because of our needs. We need this material, regardless of who starts the business first and starts marketing. The reason why industries are sustainable and they are continuously producing more and more material because it fulfills our needs. So it comes back to us. See, we as consumers, we are the ones who are encouraging the industries. Okay, if we don't have the needs, those things will not be used and it will not be produced in large quantities. And we have to look at us as part of the problem. We cannot just exclude ourselves and look at the problems outside. We are all part of the problem. The reason why things are as they are around us is because there is something that we are contributing to this problem as well. Just like I mentioned just now, the clothes that we wear, the shoes and the sandals and the car that we drive, everything is part of the problem. It is not just a simple plastic bag. A straw and a plastic bag are just examples, just to make people aware. It is just something to show. But it doesn't stop there. I think the problem is everywhere. So until and unless we see the problem coming from us, and I don't think we can really solve the problem. Of course, industries can be regulated by government, but then that would be counterproductive, I think, because at the end of the day, I think we need economies to be doing well, because that generates a lot of job opportunities. All these things are very, very interlinked. But having said that, the current pandemic is a very good lesson. With COVID-19, we can see that humans are capable of working together, collaborating in a global scale when the problem is right in front of your face. Okay, if you see the problem right in front of your face, then we are willing to work together and come up with all kinds of regulations in order to solve the problem, you see. And we are doing it very well. And this has been, mentioned very nicely. I think if you read these books by Yuval Noah Harari, he says one of the excellent quality of human being is to be able to cooperate in a large scale, in a global scale, you see. And we can see that in real time now, you see. So plastic issues can be solved, but everyone needs to be on the same page. We need to see the problem in front of us. See, all of us are not as lucky as this Dr. Sylvia Earle that was mentioned by His Excellency, Mr. Charles, who has been walking or being underwater for 7,000 hours. So she sees it, but we don't. We just see in the newspaper or we see on the website. So the problem is not real to us, but we have to see it in front of us. Then I think we will be able to solve this problem.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Sudesh. I think you have put it in a perspective that we as a human or as a consumer, we need to manage the usage of plastic.
Yes,
we have the solutions everywhere, not only PHA, but other types of biodegradable materials that we can use for plastic. But
Yeah.
if we, the consumer, doesn't appreciate that or doesn't know how to manage
Exactly.
the usage of it, it won't
Right.
give any impact towards protecting the environment. So again, I thank you, Dr. Sudesh, for that input. And moving forward, we have another panelist with us, Ms. Elina Jani from MGTC, who will be presenting on innovation for marine litter disposal. And Ms. Elina is Chief Strategic Communications for MGTC since 2017. She is a Master of Biotechnology holder and graduated in 2007. Her previous contribution includes investment and nurturing young companies. Some of our professional involvement includes being Chief Judge for the Malaysian Green Building Awards in 2018 and 2019. Ms. Alina, without further ado, I welcome you to deliver your presentation, please. Thank you.
Right. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson, Your Excellency, Mr. Charles Hay, and also Professor Dr. Sudesh Kumar. So I am very flattered that the Ministry of Environment and Water has invited our organization, Green Tech Malaysia, to be part of this esteemed panel session that we have this afternoon on sustainable ocean, innovations. Are we there in that sense? So if you would allow me, let me share my screen. Yeah, I'm running a bit late here, 10 minutes behind, but hopefully I could finish this on time. So the topic that's given to my session, if you are able to see my slide, it's okay, yeah? So innovation for marine litter disposal. This is for this webinar, Sustainable Ocean Innovation. So just a little bit of background about Green Tech Malaysia. We are a company or a government agency under the purview of Ministry of Environment and Water, KASA. We are registered under the Companies Act, and we are the lead implementing agency to champion green growth, climate change mitigation, resilience, and adaptation under the purview of this ministry. So this organization has been long established. We've been around since 1998, formerly as the Center of Energy Malaysia. We have been in the first green building in Malaysia since 2007. Our office is in Bandar Baru Bangi, so we welcome anyone here, attendees and also participants, to also come over to our office. And also we've done a lot of work with United Nations prior to our rebranding in 2009 to become Malaysian Green Technology Corporation. As of end of last year, we have been rebranded again to look into another portfolio, which is climate change. So now we are now called the Malaysian Green Technology and Climate Change Center, MGTC as for short. So previously, from 2009 to 2019 last year, we have always been guided by the National Green Technology Policy. And from there onwards, when the policy was launched in 2009, we set up the Green Technology Master Plan in 2017 to look at some 6 sectors and then going deep dive into 16 of the subsectors: energy, manufacturing, transport, building, wastewater. So it's a lot focusing on mitigation efforts to be done in these sectors in Malaysia. So as you can see from my slide, and I don't want to go a bit detailed into this, we looked upon a lot of the power supply and demand. We look at the efficiency in terms of the manufacturing sectors, the different modalities and sustainable mobility in Malaysia. We also looked a lot in the construction and building sector, and also water, upstream, midstream, and downstream in the water sector. And then last but not least, of course, in terms of the waste sector, the treatment and disposal, and of course, the resource recovery. The arrow that goes around the 6 sectors here is actually the role and function of Green Tech Malaysia, where we do promotion and awareness. We create these enablers for the market, for the green technologies. We do a lot of training in terms of human capital development in Malaysia, pushing and also pressuring a lot of the research, development, and commercialization in this space. And of course, working hand in hand with the ministry in terms of institutional framework. So starting from last year, we started to look into the climate change element. So now we got to marry the 3 different subsets and then also the 3 different areas that we're looking at. Previously, we were looking at green growth. We are looking at the, mitigation strategies in terms of addressing climate change. So you could see all the applications at the bottom right there. And now with this national policy of climate change on our shoulders to carry on, we need now to look into the adaptation strategies, which include the topic today, which is affecting the water and beach resources and also coastal areas. So in the center of these 3 subsets of areas that we're looking at, the main pillar that we're looking at is actually for green technologies to be deployed and adopted across stakeholders, be it government, ministries, be it the public sector, state governments, local state authorities, industry players, public listed companies, multinationals, non-government organizations, and of course the general public. So now, addressing on the problem statement. So I'm not sure when Mr. Chairman is going to play that video, but I was also been fortunate to join the ministry last week in conjunction to the World Ocean Day. We had a trip to the Tioman Island. To those who are not familiar, Tioman Island lies on the east coast of the Peninsula, Malaysia. And these are some of the pictures that you could see firsthand when we went down on the ground last week. So there were, I think, about 15 divers on the site. We had people coming from the fisheries department. We had people from the Taman Laut department, so that's the guys who are overlooking the marine resources in the East Coast. We had Mr. Eddie here, our chairperson, also there from the ministry representative, and then we also have some NGOs and volunteers that came with us for this trip and helped us to address the situation of this ghost nets. So these are some of the pictures upon arrival at the site. The site is in between Pulau Pasir Panjang and also Pulau Tulai. That's one of the few outlying islands around the Tioman Island. And as you can see there, you could see that this ghost net, it's there and it's spread out on the bottom of the ocean. This is about 10 meters from the surface. Between 5 to 10 meters, depending on the tide. And as you can see, this is just upon arrival on the first day when we saw the ghost net on the site. So this is the number or the amount of people that was required for the cleanup. Some of the pictures may not be clear, but you could see, at least 8 to 15 people here, working on trying to release the ghost net from the bottom of the ocean, and then also the amount of coral that has been affected by this ghost net that, has been there for a couple of weeks during this movement control order in Malaysia. And other types of marine litter that was also caught in the nets. So you could see there's this blue, I think it's plastic fishing basket here. We've got this more rattan or wood-based fishing basket here, and also some types of wood, and also generally the coral that was caught onto the ghost net that was lying on the bottom of the ocean. This was the effort to float the ghost nets to the surface in order for us to float it to land and ultimately dispose it. So you could see from this picture at the bottom right here, this indicates the depth when it's laid out, from the bottom up to the surface. And these are the amount of the divers that was required to actually get this floated to the surface so that it wouldn't be pulling any more corals at the bottom of the ocean. This is the amount of damage that was done to the coral reef. You could see, Tioman Island is one of the best diving sites in Malaysia. To Malaysians who are here watching on the Facebook Live, for those of you who have been to Tioman, it's really beautiful with a lot of very nice coral to see when you're snorkeling or scuba diving. But you can see the effect or the impact that these ghost nets are having on this coral reef that we have around this area. So when we brought it to land, so we floated it to the surface, and then the ghost net was then tugged upon by the boats that we had to go out to bring there. So you could see the amount of people that was actually required. The divers were still in the ocean, pulling up the ghost net from the ocean onto the jetty. And you could see, the amount of coral that was actually caught in the ghost net, that we had to bring it up to land because of the amount of coral that was caught in the ghost net. So you could see currently right now, the problem that we're facing is that marine litter, specifically ghost net, is not one of the kind of waste types that can be accepted by the conventional incinerator systems that we have in Malaysia. So you could see here the ghost nets that they have collected from the fisheries department, the dive shops, as well as the volunteers, the NGOs that are there on the ground. They are only able to pile it up, along the side of the Taman Laut Museum and Office in Tioman Island. So this is one of the problems that we face in terms of the marine litter disposal. And just also on the topic of coastal and beach resources, while we were there, on our morning run and all that, we were able to see that there were also a lot of other types of marine or beach litter actually that was there amongst the many islands, I believe, in Malaysia. And you could see that there's a mix of automotive or equipment waste, construction waste, and also electrical and power waste. So moving on, other issues to the marine litter that we face, particularly in Malaysia. I don't know whether His Excellency could echo this, whether any other Commonwealth countries and also the UK is facing this, is that the design of the machines or the design of the incinerator systems that we have in Malaysia predominantly focus on municipal solid waste or domestic waste. Therefore, it is not geared or designed to be able to accept specific waste, for example, like marine litter and also ghost nets. The municipal solid waste that are currently at the facility or the landfill or the incinerator facility, also the waste collection is featuring a lot of different waste types. This goes back to the efforts that's being done by the British High Commission, that we should start at the source where we are knowledgeable enough to be able to separate and sort our waste. And then, of course, last but not least, when you talk about marine litter, when you look at even the big islands, for example, at Langkawi or Tioman, or even this would definitely affect definitely the uninhabited islands or the outlying islands. The monsoon season. So the monsoon seasons actually wash up marine litter, and because of the transboundary that we have in Southeast Asia, some of the marine litter actually come from other surrounding countries, and they are there in our outlying islands in Malaysia. So part 3 for my presentation today, I've got about 10 minutes. So just to highlight about what are the innovations in marine litter disposal that, as a country we could look at, and we could collaborate with the British High Com or any other countries that are there watching here today. We would want to look into what are the kind of systems that we have currently right now, whether we can look at upon add-ons or complementing systems, or it's a call to universities, the researchers out there that you probably have some solutions for these problems that we're facing, and then ultimately to look at perhaps even exploring new frontiers in terms of innovation to address this marine litter disposal. So currently right now, some available innovations that are there in the country, we are looking at systems that have already been established in some of the states. We're turning the potentially municipal solid waste, or any forms of waste which may include marine litter as well, to ash. So these are some of the available, incineration systems that we have in Malaysia. Some of these innovations, they have various types of capacities. So for the local state authorities or city councils, or even people who are on the islands that are listening today, there's various types of capacities that cater to the waste tonnage capacity of your area. So basically, we can look at 2-ton capacity, or even the size of the facility. It can go up to 3 acres, for example. Some of the systems that are there in Malaysia includes zero accelerants. These are highly scalable and highly customizable systems. Some are also quite cheap to procure, and also operationally, it's also competitive. Sometimes some of the systems, they don't need sorting or segregation. And of course, non-hazardous discharge. That's one of the key items that we look upon in terms of these new innovations. So when it's turned into the ash, if the feedstock is in the form of organic waste, so the ash can actually be utilized as soil conditioner. So these can be some of the byproducts that's coming from this incineration systems that can actually be used as a circular economy to be used in another sector, for example, agriculture. And then say, for example, if the feedstock is consisting of inorganic waste, for example, coming from the electricity power generation sector, or manufacturing, or clinical waste. We see that a lot these days because of COVID-19. Then the byproduct that comes from the incineration process, the ash can actually be utilized for construction sector, for making into cement, and even also for road infrastructure and also buildings. So the timing for the incineration may vary according to systems. Some of the systems in Malaysia, or innovations that we have in Malaysia, are patented and complies fully to the United States Environmental Protection Agency standards. These systems are automated, can be plug and play, quick to install, robust and sturdy. Some are also solar powered, so therefore, it's fully green in terms of the operations. And the systems that we're looking right now that are available in Malaysia are also made from Malaysians. So this is something that we want to also be able to promote the innovations that's coming from our good Malaysians, to be able to export it to other countries as well. So these are some of the look and feel of the systems that we have, in our country right now, that can be customizable and also scalable according to, the needs of the area. So when we're talking about marine litter, so it could be affecting peninsulas, it could be affecting mainlands, it could also be affecting islands. So currently right now, the systems that we have in Malaysia, in terms of green tech innovations and all that, we have found some technologies that are actually good for the mainland model. So for example, we could be able to have a sustainable and integrated waste management. You will be able to have incinerators that could be converting the byproducts to steam for their own utilization, for the facility's own consumption. So therefore, they are not depending too much on our national grid in terms of their energy consumption. Some incineration systems on the mainland can even be utilized to generate byproducts that can be converted to forms of gas that can be also sold back to potential clients, for example, like Petronas or Gas Malaysia and all that. Some incineration systems can go up to the extent that they convert the waste fully into electricity. So we've seen some facilities in Malaysia that has benefited from the feed-in tariff that's being implemented by the Ministry of Energy, previously Ministry of Energy, Green Technology and Water, or MESTEC. But then nowadays, these are the kind of facilities that are there that could also feed into the electricity production. But these models that we're talking about, predominantly it's more feasible for mainland. So when we're talking about marine litter, it typically, it is a major problem for islands. So that's why this webinar today, we really welcome the ministry for organizing this webinar. We would like to make a call for researchers, university partners, industry players, even NGOs, and maybe even students that perhaps have ideas on how can we emulate this sort of new innovations for an island model, because marine litter typically affects a lot of the islands, not only in Malaysia, but all over the world. So current available technologies are still unable to dispose marine litter. Most of the incineration systems that we have in Malaysia, they would not be able to incinerate materials such as glass, concrete and cement, as well as specific metal and stainless steel. So the problem that we found when we pull up the ghost net, and particular last week's ghost net, the ghost net was big enough that it was actually comprising of international net as well as local nets. So therefore, you could see that when you look at the nets, you will be able to, the fisheries department and also the other state government agencies that we had during the trip, they were able to identify which are the local nets and which ones are the international nets. Some of the nets these days, they have embedded steel beneath the net. So it means they have like a steel cable, and then the net is actually forming the rope that makes into the overall fishing net. So because this embedded steel, the current incinerator and even the ones with the green technology innovations there, they're not able to incinerate the steel that's embedded in the net. So this is something that, we want to call for collaborations on better green technologies to solve this marine litter disposal, specifically ghost nets, but also others that we see, littering up our beaches in Malaysia and also any part of the world. But I want to echo what His Excellency, Mr. Charles Hay highlighted earlier. It has to start from the source. It has to start from all of us. It has to start where we know how to separate our waste. We know how to sort and segregate which are the recycled items. And when we are near a marine resource or we're at the beach, coastal area, please do not litter. So this, I believe, it goes hand in hand to, the efforts, the monitoring and enforcement, the technologies or innovations that can be put into disposing marine litter. But each and every one of us actually play a part. So if we play a part in terms of, sorting our own waste, we don't litter, we make that as our own personal behavior, that would definitely help to solve at least 40%, I guess, of the problems of marine litter globally. So just as a parting note, here's our picture from last week. And you could contact me. My email is there, elina@greentechmalaysia.my. And also you can visit our website, www.greentechmalaysia.my. So I hand it over to our Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Eddie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Elina, for sharing with us the proposed innovation or proposed solutions with regards to marine litter disposal. I think Ms. Elina has shown us the real life issue that people in Tioman is facing currently, not only affecting their day-to-day life, but also affecting the tourism sector all across Tioman and outlying islands across Tioman. We really need to address marine litter issue or disposal of domestic waste in Tioman so that it can contribute to ecotourism sector. And that's why I think the presentation made by Elina is really critical for us to understand what is happening on the ground and how we will come up with innovative solution. And I also would like to stress the idea that mentioned by Elina that one of the solution that was presented is actually locally made, and it is made by Malaysian, and the technology is Malaysian. Am I right to say that, or right, Elina?
Yes, yeah. Currently, right now, the ones that I showed on the slide, they are made by Malaysians, so available locally, but they have also exported to other countries as well. So it's good that our Malaysian companies are going out and also spreading that innovation.
Yeah, thank you. That is the message that I would like to pass, because we have the solution. We have our scientists coming up with PHA, for example, and we have the machine to really address disposal of marine litter. But now, for me to answer whether we are there yet, we are there, but we are still at the last mile of the thing. Now it is up to us to integrate all this innovation on all these solutions into one holistic solution, so that it really can address on the ground issues. So again, thank you, Elena, for sharing with us. And if I may pick up from our Facebook, I have one question coming from Zil Scarlett. She mentioned that I have interest in carrying capacity mechanism on this, but she didn't clearly mention what kind of area that she's referring to. But to my understanding, carrying capacity, maybe she's referring to carrying capacity of Tioman Island. So maybe she can help us in terms of assessing the access change or limit access change, so that we can really control the influx of anthropogenic factors into Tioman. So maybe we can have some offline discussion with Zil Scarlett. But Zil Scarlett, thank you for raising the carrying capacity aspect of this. I think there's no more questions. Let me just check. Hold on. Yeah, we have